We are now pleased to be joined by Dale Earnhardt Jr., driver of the number 88 Microsoft Windows 10 Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. Big week for you, Dale. Not only the fact you get back from Germany, but you have such a tremendous partnership now with Microsoft and Windows 10.
Yeah, I'm excited about this relationship. It's awesome that a company like Microsoft has gotten involved in our sport, and they've been sort of easing their way into it, and this is a great step in that direction to have them on the side of the car. And it's a great partnership for Hendrick Motorsports because we use so many programs, so much software to try to understand what these cars are doing and try to get that information from the race car and try to understand it is really a challenge. A lot of these race teams developing these sim programs on their own to be able to partner with Windows and have them understand the programs, help us sort of grow the programs and develop the programs, because you're always trying, just like the sim program has to get better, just like the equipment does. So it's a great partnership for us to be able to work directly with Microsoft. Windows 10's a new platform, and they are giving away free upgrades. You can sign up for that now, so we're really excited about the partnership, and I think that if we can work with those guys one-on-one to improve our software, our programs, understanding what we're doing with the cars, and it's going to have a direct impact on our performance on the racetrack, and help all our engineers back home to improve on our programs and just make our company stronger.
Great. We're going to open the floor up to questions. We'll get a wireless mic to you. You can state your name and affiliation.
Jonathan Mammer with NASCAR.com. First off, congratulations. But before you get pestered with questions about that, you talk about your relationship with Jeff Gordon, and have you learned a lot from him? I mean, his stats on paper are kind of mind-boggling when you look at it. I mean, he's the best here, and the stats don't lie about that. So have you learned a lot from him, and has that translated into your success here? Obviously, you're pretty good last year.
Yeah, we got it done. We got it done right once. This place is a lot of fun, but you have to temper your expectations because anything can happen. It gets really aggressive there at the end of the race, and we've had a lot of good finishes that have ended because of either my mistakes or we getting run over by some other guys or just getting into somebody else's mess or creating our own mess. I mean, just a lot of things happen at the end of the race where it gets real aggressive, and you can basically just run over everybody if you want to. But and a lot of guys do, and I've done it myself. So you got to temper your expectations when it comes to result. We've had some good cars here. I remember. With the Bud car, we run up front and led some laps here before. I mean, we've had some pretty decent days here. Just not really the finishes that I think are reflect as good as the cars were a lot of times. But last year we were real smart with our tires and put ourselves in a good position to beat a lot of guys that tried to make their tires stretch a little further than they probably should have, but enabled us to drive up through there near the end of the race. But it was fun. I expect that we're a better team. We brought a better car, and we'll see what happens. We'll get out there and try to enjoy the day and try to make good decisions, try to minimize the mistakes on the racetrack because there's so many opportunities with all these turns and all the shifting and braking to make mistakes. But I don't know that I've learned a ton from Jeff at this particular racetrack, but you definitely look at what your teammates are doing, and we have the information to understand how they're shifting, what they're doing. If you got any questions, Jeff's going to be open and honest about everything to try to help you. He enjoys helping his teammates, and I expect him to lend a hand if we needed it.
Okay, we're going to go to Jeff, Woody, and then over to Claire.
Jeff Gluck from USA Today. You're engaged. How long had you been planning to do that, and were you nervous leading up to it? Why did you pick the spot you picked?
I've been planning on it for several months. I was hoping for years that Amy and I would get married, and it just seemed like over the last year it made more sense to me. The timing was right. And I picked that particular spot just because I wanted her to, feel special, and I wanted we had talked about this trip for a while. I'd told her about this trip, and we had talked about it for 2 or 3 years, and done a ton of work on the genealogy stuff to understand what we were doing and making sure we're doing the right thing, going the right places, and so she kind of knew how important the trip was. And I think to do it at that particular time, in that moment, while we were in that church, may make the moment more memorable for her. And so I thought it was just a great place to do it. I thought about other, every other spot that I could think of just didn't measure up. It just wasn't good enough or special enough for her.
You're such a romantic. Let's go back to the
Yeah, she was blown away. Yeah, she certainly didn't have an idea that was going to happen, I don't think.
Woody King with MRN, Dale. Just curious your thoughts on the new rules package changes coming up for Kentucky and maybe some more tracks down the road. And do you think the new Drivers' Council had something to do with that?
Well, I think that the Drivers' Council definitely can be a small assist to NASCAR in making those type of decisions. But I think NASCAR made that decision based on a lot of factors. And obviously they really have a great opportunity to learn and try something different without a huge penalty, I suppose, to anybody. I think the drivers were definitely open to trying something, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how it works. It's a unique venue. It's a tough track, so I think it's going to be a challenge to really see what the package is doing versus what you would expect to see anyways at Kentucky. I don't know that the racing is going to look a lot different just because the track's so rough, slick, and so any package is going to kind of look similar, But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. We're going to be there for a couple of days practicing. They give us a lot of ample time to practice and learn and understand how to adjust our cars to that package. So I'm happy about the decisions they made. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, we're going to Claire, Jared, Tom, and we'll keep on working our way up front.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. 2 quick things. The first is, were you surprised and to hear that your crew chief said you're going to drink from the wine here? Very, very confident at this track. And second of all, I don't recall a thing with a driver like your personal announcement from Germany that got so much positive response from everyone, was just so happy. Were you warned by the fact that the fans were so happy about all of that? And what about your crew chief saying you're going to drink from the wine?
Yeah. I'm glad that y'all don't get an opportunity to get a hold of him too often, because he would say all kinds of crazy things. But once you get to know him better. But so I wasn't surprised. I was just surprised that he was in front of a reporter or anything, because he's pretty much sticks to working and doesn't really seek out opportunities to be interviewed. The positive reaction to our getting engaged has been great, and I didn't anticipate or think about that or have a vision of what that would be like. I just didn't even think about that end of it. But it was great to hear. I was the comments that were the best were the ones where people were complimenting Amy and what she's done for me. People that are close to me and has seen the change or seen the impact she's had on my life. It's good to hear those kind of things. People don't really come out and say those things just out of the blue. So it was great to hear all those compliments, because I feel the same way.
Yeah, Jared Turner, FoxSports.com. A couple questions, Dale. What led you to the conclusion that now was the right time to go ahead and propose? And secondly, the Confederate flag, the statement NASCAR issued this week, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I've made my comments on the Confederate flag several times, and I stand behind NASCAR's stance to remove it. I think it's offensive to an entire race. It really does nothing for anybody to be there flying. So I don't see any reason. It belongs in history books, and that's about it. But I think that the decision to, ask Amy to marry me, you just feel like when it's the right time, and so I've been thinking about it a long, long time, and I've been wanting to do it and just needed the right place to do it. Right, everything seemed just perfect for that to happen that day.
Brian Arnold, Fairfield Daily Republic. You got all 4 Hendrick Cars teams in the top 10 in points right now. What's kind of the state of the team coming into the first road race?
What now? Repeat that.
You got all 4 cars in the top 10 in points right now. What's kind of the state of the team coming into the first road race?
I don't know. I mean, I think that I feel like that everybody's had a week to recharge and get excited about the rest of the year. You got a lot of races coming up, and there's no testing, so we haven't been doing the typical road course testing that we do. I feel like that, a lot of, Jeff comes in here with a lot of confidence. Jimmy typically comes in here with confidence as well. I come in here just to have a good time and see what happens. I don't know about Casey. I haven't really talked about it much, but Greg's excited, pumped up, ready to get back to work. I imagine all the guys on the teams are also equally excited and ready to get back to work, regardless of what track you're at. So just to be racing, doing something at the track is fun. The break was good, the trip was good, but it's good to be back doing what you're used to doing, being at the track and driving cars and working on them.
Tom and Bob.
Dale, hi. Tom Fitzgerald, San Francisco Chronicle. I'd like to get back to an earlier question about your relationship with Jeff Gordon. You said that he's been very helpful in terms of giving you information and things like that as a teammate, of course. And I was wondering about your relationship with him when you were younger, and when he was. You're obviously younger than he is, but he had the very strong rivalry with your dad. I was wondering has it always been cordial with you and him?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a good relationship with him. We've maybe had a few small disagreements on the racetrack, but nothing that's memorable. And we've always got along, and I always respected him because him and Dad had a pretty good relationship, and they did some business together. So I, figured if Dad thought he was worth doing business together, he must have thought he was a pretty good guy. And so I always had a lot of respect for him, and always, I knew he was a great race car driver and pretty smart outside the car too. Just knowing some of the things he does on the business end of things today and in the past, it's pretty impressive. So, it'd be fun to see how he handles retirement and how he is in the booth. I think he's going to do a good job as far as that goes. And, I think he's also wants to continue to be an influence and a big part of Hendrick Motorsports. So it'll be good to have his expertise and his mind, still kind of plugged in, helping us.
Okay, Bob, Kenny, Brock, and then we'll finish up with Steve.
Bob Hocker, CSPN. Did you propose, was it at a church that your family had, it had an ancestral... And did everything go just exactly as planned, or was there any
my sister was asking me what I was going to say, and I told her I didn't have any idea. I was just going to go for it. And if it didn't have to be perfect, and maybe if it wasn't perfect, that was a good thing. To have some. I didn't want to set it up to where it was cheesy. I just wanted it to be natural and impromptu. So it was the town we were in is Ilbesheim, and my 10th, 9th grandfather lived there, went to church there, and that church is the church that they went to. It's over 1,000 years old, apparently, but very old church. The town's very old. There was 300 people living in it 300 years ago, and there's 300 people living in it today, and nothing's really changed. The buildings and everything's very old, traditional, as is a lot of what we saw over there in the areas we spent most time. We didn't really go to the bigger cities, but we wanted to get more of an older, authentic experience. So we went to. I've known all this stuff, doing all this genealogy over the years, but you can only trust what you can read on the internet, right? And even though it's Ancestry.com and they do a great job and have a great service, you still got to see this stuff with your own eyes to believe it, because we're talking about stuff that's 300 years old, and there's a lot of hearsay can get injected into something like that over that time. So we went to the city of Spire and to the archives and actually held the book that this church used to document handwriting documentation of births, deaths, baptisms, and I could sit there and read the individual, the individual writings of my 10th grandfather, my 9th grandfather, when they were baptized or when they died, and I can see it with my own hands, and I'm holding the book, the original book. So that made me more confident to make the decision to propose to Amy in that church, with that connection to that church. And I don't have a church because we race on Sundays. I went to St. Mark's Lutheran in Mooresville when I was a kid, but I don't have a church. So I'm Lutheran, and if I wanted to go to church and I could, I'd go to St. Mark's. But I just thought that that was a good place to do it, and hope that answers the question.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Before I ask my question, your 10th grandfather's name?
Hammond. It's spelled, it's kind of like Hamman. I don't know exactly. Maybe it, pronounced differently, but Earnhardt too. They changed the spelling in the last name. It was Ehrhart. They changed it over the years, but yeah.
Okay. Your engagement wasn't the only off-week news out of Hendrick Drivers, with Casey announcing that he's going to be a dad in the fall. Following that forward, is there plans for a junior down the road?
Of course, you want to have children. I think the greatest accomplishment in life is to be able to raise a child, so that'd be awesome. And something I've felt that way for a long time, but it's just a timing thing. You got to get married first and find that person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. So that's definitely in the future. She wants to have kids, and I've always kind of wanted to have kids. So that's definitely something we'll be looking at.
Brock Beard, lastcar.info. I just had a question about Jimmy Means that you've been a supporter of for many years. I was curious, what was the moment that started that for you? Is there a moment that kind of endeared yourself to him?
When my dad would take me to the races when I was really young, and he introduced me to sons of other drivers, and he introduced me to Brad, and me and Brad became friends and would run around in the garage together. And I learned through Brad the challenges that Jimmy faced as an independent. And hanging around their hauler and hanging around Dad's hauler, you saw immediately the differences in what they were dealing with and the advantages that my dad had in his equipment versus Jimmy's. So I guess, just through that relationship, I got a real appreciation for Jimmy and his dedication, even beyond his driving career, to continue to be involved in the sport and try to make a living as an owner and fielding cars, has been a real inspiration.
Steve Richards of PRN. Couple Germany questions. First of all, are there any stories about you getting recognized over there, or do you have it? Were you able to walk around and just people?
Nothing crazy happened. I just had one or two people recognize me, and when. For the most part, I was in some of the older towns, very small towns that it's not very touristy areas, and so we, people didn't know why we was walking around in the street, but they didn't care, and they never probably watched a race, but I don't know if they even, I know they show the races over there, but I don't know how much coverage they actually have outside the city. But it was great. I mean, it was kind of fun to be anonymous, and we talked when I went to Ilvesheim, and we explained everything to the folks there, and I don't think they knew anything about what we were talking about. As far as I took about 10 postcards, and I gave a couple of postcards to the people that were in Ilvesheim. We stayed in them. There's only like 2 places to stay in rooms, and they only got 3 rooms at each place. And so we were talking to the innkeeper where we were at, and he was feeding us dinner. And I showed him the postcards. And I had a guy with me, Martin, that does our IT at Junior Motorsports. He's German, and he could sit there and interpret for both of us. And we showed him everything on the card and told him all about it. He'd never seen anything even remotely like a NASCAR cup car, and didn't know what he trying to get him to understand that I was the driver. It wasn't registering, and it was kind of refreshing, to be honest with you.
So did you get to drive the Autobahn?
Surely.
And well, how did it go, and how fast did you drive?
Yeah, the Autobahn is basically an interstate. If you're on I-77, you're on the Autobahn. If you're on 85, you're on the Autobahn. But and they're in between the towns. In between the towns, they drop the speed limits unlimited. So we were in this van that would only do about. It was kind of boxy, so it only do about 195 kilometers because of the aerodynamic disadvantages. But down the hill, I could get it up to 210.
A lot of downforce in that.
And that's kilometers. That's not.
Yeah. I don't even know it's 160 miles an hour maybe.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I mean they're most of it's 120 kilometer. I saw 120 kilometer speed limit signs for the most part. I'm between 100 and 120. I don't know how fast that is. 70 or 80 mile an hour.
80.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was good, and they're very sharp and smart. It's not like even though you're going that fast and there's guys going faster, there's some structure to it. You don't sit in the left lane on the interstate. If they have 3 lanes, you pass to the left. You never pass anybody on the right. And when you go over to pass a guy, you immediately use the turn signal and get back in the right lane. So everybody stays on the right. You only pull to the left to pass. There's nobody that sits there and rides in the left-hand lane because there's a guy coming 100 mile an hour down the street behind you somewhere faster than you are, and you need to be getting out of the way. They don't like it when they have to slow down.
Well, Dale, we won't make you slow down anymore. Good luck the rest of the weekend, and thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it.